Hi everybody, it's Mark here. Just wanted to do a couple little updates. First, we're no longer doing a Saturday show. We're only doing Monday through Friday shows. So you'll be missing us on the weekends, but that'd just make you more anxious for that Monday morning show. I did get a post from General Washington. He will be in the area and will be stopping by next week. He'll be in and out. He's got quite a few little things he has to attend to, but he's promised to come and speak to you whenever he can. So the General Washington will be good to see him again. Today we're going to talk briefly about a man who Washington knew very well and who knew Washington very well. And so I thought I'd spend a couple minutes just talking about him and some of the deeds that he did. He went to work for Washington when he was about 18 years old, working at Mount Vernon, and he worked around the house and did errands and stuff like that. And whenever Washington would travel to the Virginia meeting of the Burgesses, he'd go with Washington to that. And then when Washington went to the First Continental Congress, he escorted him there as well. And so he became a pretty good companion of Washington's. And then when General Washington became in charge of the Army during the Revolutionary War, this gentleman, as the years went on, this gentleman escorted him from the Continental Congress in Philadelphia to Boston, and he lived with Washington 24/7, 365 days a year throughout the entire Revolutionary War. Now, you got to remember that started in 1775 for Washington and ended in 1783. So that's quite a while, 8 years, 24/7, 365. And this guy, he was, when Washington went to battle, we've talked about Washington being in the front lines and follow me, men. This gentleman was right there. When Washington might need a new horse, he gave him his horse. And when Washington wanted a scope for viewing, where the enemy was, this gentleman provided that. And this gentleman went on after the war and went back to Mount Vernon and worked for Washington again. And when they were out surveying, he became injured, messed up a leg pretty badly, and Washington kept him on working for him. And then when he was elected president, he fell and hurt himself again on the way to New York, where the inauguration was, and then the White House was going to be in Philadelphia. He fell, hurt his other leg, and never made the inauguration, and really never made it to the White House with the general. And so he went back to Mount Vernon and worked at Mount Vernon for a great number of years. And it was a sad part of his life because he enjoyed being with Washington. But more importantly, he had a great influence on how Washington thought. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But this man was a confidant for Washington. He was someone that Washington could talk to and would get an honest answer, wouldn't be a biased answer, wouldn't be a political answer. It was a straightforward two guys, two friends talking to one another. And so this man's name was William Lee, better known as Billy Lee. And Billy Lee was a slave. and he was Washington's right-hand man from the age of 18. He combed Washington's hair. He made sure his clothes were pressed. He was everything you could think of. And then when Washington needed someone to speak to, he was Washington's friend. He was actually, Washington paid 68 pounds for him at a slave market from another guy. And he remained a slave, but turned Washington's opinion on slavery around. At first, Washington looked at slaves as just property, and by the end of the Revolutionary War, he was actually detesting slavery. And the one major thing that he did in his will, Washington did in his will, is he set Mr. Lee free. He was a free man. That was part of his will. And so there you go. An enslaved person was Washington's best confidant. And I hope you'll look up Mr. William Lee, because it's an interesting life that he had. Thanks for being with us.